Judge Marcus Thorne's courtroom is not a place of law. It is a kingdom. The polished wood of the judge's bench is his throne, dark and gleaming under the recessed lights. The American flag to his right is not a symbol of the nation, but the banner of his personal fiefdom. The great seal of the state carved into the wall behind him is his family crest. And the black robe he wears is his armor, a shield of impenetrable authority woven from threads of arrogance and contempt. He sits high above everyone else, a position he believes is ordained by nature itself. His face is a sculpture of smug satisfaction, all sharp angles and soft jowls, a man carved from granite and prejudice. His eyes, small and buried in fleshy sockets, scan the room not with judicial impartiality, but with the predatory gaze of a landlord inspecting his property for vermin. Today, the vermin has a name. David Mercer. From his throne, Judge Thorne looks down at the man standing before him. David Mercer is a stark contrast to the oppressive grandeur of the room. He wears a suit that might have been sharp a decade ago but now hangs on his frame with a certain weary resignation. The fabric is thin at the elbows, the color faded from too many trips to the dry cleaner. It is the best thing he owns, and in this room, it feels like a costume of inadequacy. David stands straight, his hands clasped behind his back. It is a posture of forced calm, a dam holding back a flood of anxiety. He is a good man. A quiet man. A man who has worked with his hands his entire life, fixing what is broken, building what is needed. He is a father, a husband, a pillar in a community this courtroom has never heard of and would not care about if it had. Today, he is simply the defendant. Mr. Mercer, Judge Thorne says, and the name drips from his tongue like something unpleasant he has just tasted. You are here today because of a simple matter. A matter of public order. A matter of respecting the lines. The judge gestures vaguely with a manicured hand. The lines on the pavement, which tell you where to park your vehicle. The lines of civility, which tell you how to speak to a law enforcement officer. The lines of society, which you and people like you seem to find so very difficult to comprehend. David Mercer does not flinch. He keeps his eyes fixed on the seal behind the judge's head. To look the man in the eye would be to acknowledge the poison in his words. The charge is absurd. A parking ticket. He had parked in a spot designated for residents of a new, gleaming condominium complex, a building that had risen from the ashes of 3 neighborhood homes. He was there for less than 5 minutes, dropping off a custom-built bookshelf for an elderly woman who had lived on that street her entire life. The officer who wrote the ticket appeared as if summoned, aggressive and dismissive from the first moment. When David tried to explain, calmly and respectfully, the officer's voice had risen, his hand drifting to his side. The ticket for parking became a citation for disorderly conduct. It was a trap, and David had walked right into it. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Thorne asks. It is not a question. It is a dare. A performance for the sycophants in the prosecutor's office and the weary public defenders who know better than to fight too hard in this kingdom. David takes a breath. Your Honor, I was. The gavel cracks down. The sound is like a gunshot in the silent room. It echoes off the marble and wood, a punctuation mark of absolute power. I will stop you right there, Mr. Mercer, Thorne booms, leaning into his microphone. The speakers amplify his voice, turning it into the voice of a wrathful god. I did not ask for a story. I did not ask for an excuse. The facts are the facts. You were parked illegally. You were belligerent with an officer of the law. These are not complex issues. David's public defender, a young man named Miller with exhaustion etched into the lines around his eyes, steps forward hesitantly. Your Honor, if I may, we have evidence. A sworn affidavit from the woman Mr. Mercer was assisting, as well as a time-stamped photo from my client's phone showing he was there for under 5 minutes. Judge Thorne turns his predatory gaze on Miller. It is a look that has withered the confidence of far more experienced lawyers. Evidence? Thorne scoffs, a small, cruel smile playing on his lips. Counselor, what you have is a piece of paper and a picture from a telephone. What the state has is the sworn testimony of a police officer. In my courtroom, and I do hope you learn this lesson sooner rather than later. That is the end of the discussion. He waves a dismissive hand. Sit down, counselor. You are wasting the court's time. Miller's shoulders slump. He has a stack of other cases waiting, other clients who need his divided attention. He gives David an apologetic look and sits. The system has absorbed his attempt at resistance without even a ripple. David is alone again. He feels the eyes of the people in the gallery on him. He feels their pity, their judgment, their relief that it is him and not them standing in this sterile, cold spotlight. He thinks of his wife, Sarah, who told him to just pay the fine. It's not worth it, David, she had said, her voice tight with worry. Men like that, in places like that, they don't lose. But it was the principle. It was the lie. He had done nothing wrong, and to admit guilt was to let a small piece of that lie attach itself to his name, to his family. So he had come here, to this kingdom, hoping for justice. He sees now what a fool he was. Thorne leans back in his throne, steepling his fingers. He is enjoying this. This is the part of the job he truly loves. Not the complex legal arguments, not the pursuit of truth. Just this. The simple, brutal application of power. The breaking of a man's spirit. You know, Mr. Mercer, the judge says, his voice now a conspiratorial murmur that still carries through the whole room. I look at your file. I see where you live. I see your profession. A carpenter, is it? An honest trade. A simple trade. For simple men. The insult is delivered so smoothly, it is almost elegant. But what this city needs is not just simple men. It needs orderly men. Men who understand their place. Men who respect the structures that keep us all safe. He leans forward again, his eyes narrowing. When you argue with a police officer over a parking space, you are not just arguing about a few feet of asphalt. You are chipping away at the very foundation of our society. You are telling the world that the rules do not apply to you. David's hands, clasped behind his back, are now balled into tight fists. His knuckles are white. The urge to speak, to shout, to defend his own dignity, is a physical pressure in his chest. But he knows it is a baited trap. Any outburst, any flicker of anger, will be all the justification Thorne needs. So he remains silent. He breathes. In and out. He thinks of his daughter, Anya. He thinks of the pride in her eyes when she got her acceptance letter. He thinks of her letters from training, filled with stories of discipline, focus, and an unshakable sense of right and wrong. He channels that image. Her strength. Nothing to say. Thorne chuckles. Wise. Perhaps you are not as simple as I thought. He picks up a pen and makes a note on a pad, a deliberate, theatrical gesture. The charge of disorderly conduct is a serious one. It carries with it a fine of up to $5,000. And up to 90 days in jail. A gasp ripples through the gallery. 90 days. For a parking dispute. Miller, the public defender, shoots to his feet. Your Honor, that's the maximum sentence. My client has no prior offenses. This is completely disproportionate to. Counselor, Thorne snaps, his voice like cracking ice. I am well aware of the sentencing guidelines. And I am also well aware of the message that needs to be sent. The people of this city need to see that there are consequences for defiance. They need to see that the law is not a suggestion. He looks back at David, and the mask of judicial temperament is gone. All that is left is naked, ugly prejudice. I'm considering making an example of you, Mr. Mercer. A strong example. The threat hangs in the air thick and suffocating. This is no longer about a ticket. This has never been about a ticket. This is a public lynching of a man's character, a ritual humiliation designed to reinforce the existing order of things. Thorne is the king, and David is the peasant who dared to look him in the eye. The judge savors the moment, letting the fear marinate. He sees the tremor in David's jaw, the subtle sheen of sweat on his brow. He sees a man breaking. And then he decides to deliver the final, killing blow. He decides to make it personal. I have to wonder, Thorne says, his voice dropping to a low, cruel register, what kind of example you are setting. You come in here, in your worn-out suit, defiant and sullen. A man who cannot even follow the simple rules of a parking lot. You have children, Mr. Mercer. The question is a violation. David's silence is his only shield. I see from your file you do, Thorne continues, a predatory smile spreading across his face. A daughter. What must she think? Seeing her father dragged into court like a common criminal. What future is there for a child with a role model like that? He leans forward, his voice a venomous whisper that fills the room. People like you are a burden on this city. You teach your children that defiance is strength, that resentment is righteous. I bet your daughter is just as lost as you are. Something inside David Mercer snaps. It is not a loud crack, but a quiet, seismic shift. The dam of his composure does not break, it vanishes. The fear is washed away by a cold, pure rage. A father's rage. He lifts his head, and for the first time, he looks directly into Judge Marcus Thorne's eyes. There is no fear in his gaze now. There is no pleading. There is only a deep, profound contempt that seems to suck the air out of the space between them. You will not, David says, his voice low and steady, each word a perfectly shaped stone of defiance, speak about my daughter. The room falls utterly silent. Even Thorne is taken aback by the sudden transformation. The peasant is no longer bowing. A slow, ugly red flush creeps up Thorne's neck. The insolence. The sheer, unmitigated gall. You dare, the judge hisses, his hand reaching for the gavel as if it were a weapon. You dare to threaten me in my own. But he never finishes the sentence. Because at that exact moment, the great oak doors at the back of the courtroom swing open. They do not creak. They do not drift. They are pushed open with a quiet, decisive force that commands the attention of every soul in the room. Two figures stand silhouetted in the doorway against the bright light of the hallway. One is a uniformed bailiff, his face a mask of confusion and alarm. The other is a woman. She is tall and poised, her presence radiating an aura of disciplined calm that is the antithesis of the room's simmering hostility. She wears a simple, perfectly tailored black suit, crisp and immaculate. A small, discreet pin gleams on her lapel, and a clear coiled tube runs from behind her ear, disappearing into the collar of her jacket. She takes a step forward, and her shoes make no sound on the marble floor. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, sweep the room once, assessing, cataloguing, owning. Judge Thorne squints, annoyed by the interruption. What is the meaning of this? This is a closed court. Bailiff, remove these. But the bailiff does not move. He is staring at the woman, his expression a mixture of awe and terror. He has seen uniforms his entire life. He has never seen one that carries this much weight. The woman begins to walk down the central aisle. It is not a walk. It is a procession. Her stride is measured, economical, each step landing with an undeniable finality. The simmering whispers in the gallery die instantly, replaced by a thick, breathless silence. She passes the public defender's table. Miller stares, his mouth slightly agape. She passes the prosecutor's table. The prosecutor, who had been smirking moments before, now looks like he has swallowed a stone. She walks until she is standing directly behind her father. She places a hand gently on David Mercer's shoulder. He does not turn, but he feels the touch, and a lifetime of tension seems to flow out of him. Judge Thorne is on his feet now, his face purple with rage. Who in God's name are you? How dare you interrupt my court? I will have you arrested. I will have you thrown in a cell for contempt. The woman's eyes finally settle on the judge. They are her father's eyes, but where his held weary dignity, hers hold a cold, analytical fire. There is no fear in them. No deference. There is only focus. She does not raise her voice. She does not need to. Her words cut through the judge's blustering with the clean precision of a surgeon's scalpel. "My name," she says, her voice calm and clear, ringing with an authority that makes the judge's manufactured power seem like a child's tantrum, "is Special Agent Anya Mercer. United States Secret Service." The name hangs in the air. Secret Service. The words land like stones, shattering the fragile glass of Judge Thorne's kingdom. The title is a key, unlocking a door to a world of power so far beyond this provincial courtroom that it might as well be another dimension. The color drains from Marcus Thorne's face. The purple rage recedes, replaced by a blotchy, sallow white. His jaw, which had been set in a sneer of dominance, goes slack. He stares at the pin on her lapel, the eagle and the shield, and his mind, for the first time in decades, is completely blank with shock. He looks from the daughter to the father. From the immaculate, powerful agent to the man in the worn-out suit. The carpenter. The simple man. And in that sickening, stomach-churning moment of recognition, Judge Marcus Thorne understands. He has not been sparring with a peasant. He has been poking a dragon. Anya Mercer takes another step forward, moving to stand beside her father. She is not addressing the court. She is addressing the man. "You were asking about the example my father set for me," she says, her voice still unnervingly calm. "Let me tell you. He taught me that integrity is the only currency that matters. He taught me that a person's character is measured by how they treat those with nothing to give them. And he taught me that bullies, no matter how high their throne or how black their robe, are always, at their core, cowards." Every word is a blow. Thorne flinches as if physically struck. He stumbles back a step, gripping the edge of his bench for support. His kingdom is dissolving around him, its gilded walls turning to dust. This is irregular," he stammers, the booming god voice now a weak, reedy thing. "You have no jurisdiction here. This is a state court. A local matter." Anya allows a flicker of something that might be pity, or perhaps just profound contempt, to cross her face. "You are mistaken, Judge Thorne. My jurisdiction is wherever a federal interest is concerned. And you, and your courtroom, have become a matter of profound federal interest." She turns her head slightly, a silent command. The second figure from the doorway, who had been waiting patiently, now steps forward. He is a man in a grey suit, older, with the weary, patient eyes of a career investigator. He carries a thick leather briefcase. "This is Assistant United States Attorney Frank Garrison," Anya announces to the silent room. "He is leading the investigation." Thorne's eyes dart between Anya and Garrison, wide with panic. "Investigation? What investigation? This is harassment. This is an abuse of power." The irony is so thick it is almost comical. The man who has abused his power as a daily ritual is now squealing about his own rights. Garrison places his briefcase on the prosecutor's table and opens it with 2 sharp clicks. He does not look at Thorne. He addresses the court record, his voice a dry, factual monotone. "For the past 18 months, he begins, the Department of Justice, in cooperation with the Treasury Department's Office of the Inspector General, has been conducting a covert investigation into judicial corruption in this district. The investigation is codenamed Operation Fallen Gavel." A tremor runs through Judge Thorne's body. His hands are shaking visibly now. "Our investigation," Garrison continues, pulling out a thick, bound document, "has uncovered a wide-ranging conspiracy of bribery, extortion, racketeering, and obstruction of justice. At the center of this conspiracy is a slush fund, disguised as a charitable entity called the Thorne Foundation for Civic Advancement." The prosecutor, a man named Henderson, makes a small choking sound. He begins to edge away from the table, as if proximity to the briefcase might incriminate him. "This foundation," Garrison says, his eyes finally lifting to meet Thorne's terrified gaze, "was used to launder bribes from defendants seeking favorable rulings, from contractors seeking city permits you influenced, and from wealthy landowners looking to fast-track zoning changes. We have wiretaps, Your Honor. We have financial records. We have sworn testimony from your bagman, a bailiff by the name of Robert Fletcher, who decided to cooperate with us last Tuesday. In the back of the courtroom, a bailiff who is not Robert Fletcher suddenly looks very, very ill. Thorne's composure cracks completely. Lies. All of it. Fletcher is a disgruntled employee. This is a political witch hunt. His voice rises to a desperate shriek. He bangs the gavel, a frantic, pathetic rhythm. Order? I demand order. This proceeding is over. Court is adjourned. You are not adjourning anything, Anya says, her voice cutting through his hysteria. You have lost that privilege. She turns her attention to the original, trivial charge that started this all. Let's talk about the matter at hand. The parking ticket. And the disorderly conduct charge against my father, David Mercer. She looks at the arresting officer, a burly man named Corrigan who is now trying to blend in with the courtroom's wood paneling. Officer Corrigan, Anya says, her voice sharp. My father was in that parking space for 4 minutes and 37 seconds. He was delivering a bookshelf to an 82-year-old woman named Elena Rodriguez. A woman whose home is one of 3 remaining on a block that the developer, a Mr. Reginald Vance, is trying to acquire. A developer who, according to our records, made a $20,000 donation to the Thorne Foundation for Civic Advancement just last month. Corrigan turns pale. Mr. Vance has been trying to force those residents out, Anya continues, her methodical takedown proceeding with chilling efficiency. He has used harassment, frivolous complaints, and intimidation. When my father, a respected member of that community, began helping his neighbors file formal complaints with the city, Mr. Vance made a phone call. A phone call to you, Judge Thorne. She holds up a small digital audio recorder. We know this because Mr. Vance, in his eagerness to avoid a federal racketeering charge, gave us the recording of that call. The one where you promised to take care of the carpenter. The one where you instructed him to have one of your pet officers, Officer Corrigan, invent a reason to harass and arrest my father. To make an example of him. She presses a button. Judge Thorne's voice, distorted but unmistakable, fills the silent courtroom. Don't worry, Reggie. I'll handle the carpenter. We'll get him in my courtroom on some nonsense charge. By the time I'm done with him, he'll be too broken to cause any more trouble for you. I'll make an example of him. The recording clicks off. The silence that follows is absolute. It is the silence of a tomb. Thorne stares at the small recorder in Anya's hand as if it is a serpent poised to strike. He opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. All the bluster, all the arrogance, all the carefully constructed authority has been stripped away, layer by layer, until only the raw, pathetic core of a corrupt and terrified man is left. He is no longer a judge. He is no longer a king. He is just a criminal in a bad suit. So, you see, Judge, Anya says, her voice softening slightly, but losing none of its steel, this was never about a parking ticket. It was about you using the power of your office as a weapon to intimidate a good man who was standing up for his neighbors. You didn't see a citizen. You saw a nuisance. You didn't see a father. You saw a person like him. She takes a step closer to the bench, her eyes locked on his. You made one mistake. You assumed he was alone. You assumed he was powerless. My father taught me many things, but the most important lesson was this: you never, ever let a bully win. Garrison, the AUSA, steps forward again. He holds up a single sheet of paper. Marcus Thorne, he says, his voice formal and final, I have here a warrant for your arrest, issued by a federal magistrate. You are being charged with 1 count of racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations, 3 counts of bribery, 5 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to obstruct justice. He nods to the doors. 2 more men enter the courtroom. They are not in Secret Service uniforms. They are larger, broader, and their suits do little to hide the fact that they are built for a single purpose. On their belts are sidearms and handcuffs. On the back of their jackets are 3 bold, yellow letters, FBI. They walk down the aisle with the same inexorable purpose as Anya had, their faces grim and professional. They do not look at the crowd. They do not look at David. They look only at the man on the bench. They ascend the steps to his throne. "Judge Thorne," one of the agents says, his voice polite but unyielding. "Please stand and place your hands behind your back." Thorne doesn't move. He is frozen, his mind unable to process the complete and total annihilation of his world. "Please remove your robe, sir," the other agent says. This seems to break the spell. Thorne clutches the black fabric of his robe, the symbol of his power, as if it is a life raft. "No," he whispers. "No. This is my courtroom. You can't do this." The agent's face hardens. "Sir, we can do this here, or we can do it in the hallway. It's your choice." With a final, desperate sob of defiance, Thorne shakes his head. The agents move in. One takes his left arm, the other his right. They gently but firmly peel the robe from his shoulders. It falls to the floor behind the bench in a black, empty heap. Without it, he is diminished. He is just a man, sweating in an expensive shirt, his face pale and doughy. The illusion is shattered forever. They turn him around and click the cold steel of the handcuffs around his wrists. The sound echoes in the silent room, a final, metallic verdict. As they lead him down from the bench, past the jury box, past the tables of the lawyers he terrorized, he looks broken. His eyes are wide and vacant. He stumbles on the last step, and the agents have to hold him up. They walk him down the center aisle, the same path Anya had taken. The walk of shame. The people in the gallery stare, their faces a mixture of shock, awe, and for a few, quiet, tearful triumph. These are the other victims of Thorne's kingdom, the ones who had no powerful daughter to come to their rescue. As they pass the row where David Mercer is standing, Thorne, in a last, pathetic spasm of his former arrogance, lifts his head and glares at him. "You," he spits, his voice cracked and raw. "You did this." David Mercer, who has watched this entire proceeding with a quiet, profound stillness, finally speaks again. His voice is not triumphant. It is not angry. It is simply clear and true. He looks at the man who tried to destroy him, who insulted his family, who represented everything rotten and corrupt in the world. "No, Judge," David says softly. "You did this to yourself. You asked what kind of example I set for my daughter. This is it. She learned to stand up to men like you." The words hit Thorne harder than any physical blow. His face crumples. The last ounce of fight drains out of him, and he lets the agents lead him away, a broken man being dragged from the ruins of his own corrupt empire. The great oak doors swing shut behind them, and the kingdom of Judge Marcus Thorne is officially, and permanently, dissolved. The aftermath is swift and brutal. The fallout, as the newspapers call it, is a cleansing fire that sweeps through the city's judiciary. Operation Fallen Gavel is not just about one man. It is about a system. Judge Marcus Thorne, stripped of his title and his dignity, refuses to cooperate. He believes, until the very end, that his connections will save him, that the edifice of power he built will not be allowed to fall. He is wrong. His allies scatter like rats from a sinking ship. The prosecutor, Henderson, takes a plea deal, agreeing to testify against his former master in exchange for a reduced sentence. He is disbarred, his career in ruins, and ultimately serves 18 months in a low-security federal prison. He spends his days cleaning toilets, a fitting end for a man who helped flush justice down the drain. Officer Corrigan is fired from the police force in disgrace. He faces state charges for perjury and official misconduct. He is found guilty and sentenced to 3 years, a pariah among both the public and his fellow inmates. Reginald Vance, the wealthy developer, avoids prison time by becoming the prosecution's star witness. His testimony, along with the mountain of evidence collected by the FBI, seals Thorne's fate. However, his company collapses under the weight of federal fines and civil lawsuits from the residents he harassed. He loses everything. And Marcus Thorne? He is convicted on all counts. The sentencing hearing is a quiet affair, a stark contrast to the theatrical drama of his own courtroom. The new judge, a stern woman from out of state, shows no mercy. She reads a list of the lives he has ruined, the trust he has betrayed, the damage he has done to the very concept of law. She sentences him to 30 years in a federal supermax prison. No possibility of parole. His assets are seized, his lavish home auctioned off, his name keisled off the university law library he endowed with dirty money. He is sent to a facility in the middle of a desert, where his black robe is replaced by a drab orange jumpsuit, and his gavel is replaced by a plastic spork. He is no longer a king. He is just a number. For David Mercer, the world changes. All charges against him are not just dropped, they are publicly and formally expunged with a written apology from the mayor's office. The civil suit he files against Vance and the city results in a massive settlement, enough to ensure his family's security for generations. But David is not a man who hoards his blessings. He and Sarah use the bulk of the settlement to establish the Mercer Justice Initiative, a non-profit foundation dedicated to providing top-tier legal aid to those who cannot afford it. It funds innocence projects, supports public defenders, and establishes a watchdog group to monitor the local judiciary. The first person they hire to run it is Miller, the young public defender who, despite being outgunned, had stood up for David in Thorne's courtroom. With proper resources and support, he becomes a lion of the legal community. Anya Mercer receives a quiet, formal commendation from the director of the Secret Service for her integrity and for acting in the highest traditions of the service. Her role in uncovering the corruption is kept out of the papers, her work best done from the shadows. 6 months later, she is promoted to lead her own protective detail, one of the youngest agents to ever achieve that rank. Her father's pride is a quiet, steady warmth that fuels her through long days and longer nights. The systemic change is the most profound victory of all. The investigation sparked by Thorne's fall unearths corruption in 2 other judges and a dozen city officials. Over 47 of Thorne's past convictions are overturned due to judicial misconduct. Families are reunited. Lives are restored. An entirely new system of judicial oversight is implemented, with citizen review boards and transparent accountability. The poison is purged. 2 years later. The building is not grand. It is not made of marble and dark wood. It is made of brick and glass, and it is filled with light. This is the new headquarters of the Mercer Justice Initiative, located in the heart of the community David Mercer has always called home. David stands in the reception area, not in a worn-out suit, but in comfortable jeans and a soft flannel shirt. He is talking to a young couple, their faces etched with worry. They are facing eviction, a classic case of a landlord trying to illegally force them out to gentrify a building. David is not giving them legal advice, he is giving them something more important. Hope. You're in the right place, he says, his voice calm and reassuring. We have the best people here. They'll fight for you. You just have to stay strong and tell the truth. The truth matters. The doors slide open, and Anya walks in. She is in civilian clothes, a simple sweater and slacks. She is smiling. She walks over and puts an arm around her father's shoulders. Am I interrupting? She asks. Never, David says, his face breaking into a proud grin. He introduces her to the young couple, who look at her with a kind of quiet awe. They don't know her story, not all of it, but they know she is part of this place, part of the reason they have a fighting chance. After the couple is taken back to meet with their new lawyer, Anya and David stand by the large window, looking out at the bustling street. The old courthouse is visible in the distance, a grey stone monolith that now seems smaller, less imposing. I got a letter today, Anya says softly. Oh. It was from the daughter of a man named Louis Pena. He was one of the men whose conviction was overturned. He'd been in prison for 12 years on a charge Thorne fabricated. His home now. David nods, his eyes distant. He thinks of all the Louis Penas, all the families broken by one man's bottomless arrogance. She said her father cried for a whole day when he got out, Anya continues. Not from sadness. He said it was because he couldn't believe goodness still existed in the world. They stand in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of that statement settling between them. The world is full of bullies on their thrones, men who mistake power for worth and cruelty for strength. They build their kingdoms on the backs of the powerless, believing their walls are impenetrable. They wrap themselves in robes of authority and issue edicts of contempt, certain that the simple, good people of the world will bow forever. But they are wrong. Arrogance is a poison that rots the foundation of any kingdom. Power built on prejudice is a house of cards in a hurricane. And sometimes, all it takes to bring it all crashing down is the quiet dignity of a good man who refuses to break, and the unwavering love of a daughter he taught to fight. Justice is not always loud. Sometimes, it does not arrive with a thunderclap, but with the quiet, determined sound of a door swinging open at just the right moment.